Hello friends, it's Katie back with another episode of my vlog and of course another Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. We started this week with a stone cold classic from 1984, Beverly Hills Cop. Of course, starring Eddie Murphy and directed by Martin Brest. If you haven't seen Beverly Hills Cop for some reason, which I was going to say, I'd be very surprised if anyone watching this vlog has never seen Beverly Hills Cop, but it was revealed to me upon our watching at my very own house that my husband, Sean Auberg, had never seen Beverly Hills Cop all the way through. For whatever reason, as a kid, he had seen bits and pieces of it, but had never watched the whole movie. So it's entirely possible that you've made it to age 45 with never having seen Beverly Hills Cop. If I just described you, please watch this movie as soon as you possibly can. It is a action-packed, hilarious, buddy cop comedy adventure. Eddie Murphy, of course, plays Axel Foley, a Detroit policeman who one of his buddies gets killed in his apartment hallway. He gets put on leave after this incident and he decides to go on vacation to Beverly Hills to track down who killed his buddy. Once he gets out to Beverly Hills, of course, you've got this kind of great contrast between Eddie Murphy's street roots from Detroit and the posh, fancy world of Beverly Hills, where apparently the police department always follows the rules no matter what, and the police officers always tell the truth, even if it's going to get them in trouble. I found this hard to believe, but it's a plot point in the movie, so okay. What can I say about this film? It is a vehicle for Eddie Murphy, and he is absolutely hilarious and absolutely perfect. He's fast-talking, he's shrewd, he's cocky, he gets himself into and out of a ton of insane situations just by virtue of running his mouth, basically. He's got that incredible Eddie Murphy laugh, which he busts out all over the place, all over this movie. And he's just basically perfect in this movie that feels like it was written for him. Now, I say that because it really does feel like that when you watch the movie. And I found out when I did research for this vlog that it really was written for him on the rewrite. So brace yourselves, folks, for the alternate reality story. Beverly Hills Cop was originally written as a straight-ahead action movie, and it was going to be starring Sylvester Stallone. Stallone apparently rewrote a script that someone else had given him and made this insane action movie treatment for it. And then it was basically shot down by Paramount because it was going to be too expensive to shoot this movie. Stallone apparently pulled out something like 2 weeks before they were supposed to start shooting. And then the producers, which are Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, major action producers, right? Like 2 days later, asked Eddie Murphy to star in the movie. He agreed, and they rewrote the entire thing as a comedy action piece. So that's pretty cool. I'm really having trouble seeing Beverly Hills Cop as a straight-ahead action vehicle for Sylvester Stallone. I've been trying to imagine it for the last like 12 hours, and it's very difficult. Boy, am I glad that's not the movie we got, and we did get this amazing Eddie Murphy vehicle instead. Movie's incredible. It's incredibly well written. The action scenes are incredibly well done. Again, there's some on the portrayal of the police and particularly the police work that goes on in this movie, but I think a lot of the funny buddy cop movies from the 80s had some policing going on in them, if you want to look at it with a really critical eye. Of course, this isn't a technical how-to manual about policing. This is a action comedy, and so it works perfectly in this movie. I also learned in my research for this vlog that this movie is the third highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. You have to adjust for inflation when you're comparing movies that came out at radically different times. But apparently the top grossing R-rated movies of all time are The Godfather, then The Exorcist, and then Beverly Hills Cop, which that's impressive for a comedy, I have to say, but it's an impressive movie. I will definitely shout out the opening chase scene with the cigarette truck. I had forgotten how amazing that chase scene was, and it blew my mind. But yeah, the whole movie's great. 10 out of 10, perfect movie. required viewing for sure. And if you want to be in an Eddie Murphy mode, it's like the first required viewing of Eddie Murphy. I feel like when you look at him in the 80s and all the work that he did, it's like Beverly Hills Cop, The Golden Child, and Coming to America are like the three standout ones that like you have to see. So required viewing, please watch them if you haven't. And of course, please watch them again if you haven't watched them in a while because they're amazing. But I was really just talking about Beverly Hills Cop there. So that's the one you need to watch now. The next night after that, we took a recommendation from my dear friend Jen, who knows me so well, and she sees every movie that comes out, so she can really pick and choose the ones that she knows I'm gonna like. She recommended Captain Fantastic from 2016, written and directed by Matt Ross, starring Viggo Mortensen and a whole bunch of other people, including 6 child actors, 6 of them, who blew my mind with how good they were. This is a very touching, heartfelt, funny family comedy drama about basically if you took the radical unschooling thing that Sean and I do and kind of kept going on that track to its logical or illogical conclusion, we have a family of like lefty anarchist society dropouts who are living off-grid in the woods in Washington State. Viggo Mortensen plays the dad. His name is Ben, and the mom is not in the picture at the beginning of the movie. She's out. She's at the hospital, and pretty early on in the movie, she kills herself. It turns out she's at the hospital because she has bipolar disorder, and the hospital she's at's a mental hospital. And spoiler alert, she kills herself, but that happens pretty early on in the movie. And then the rest of the movie becomes about this family and how they deal with not just the death of the mother, but then interfacing with the rest of their extended family. Road trip to a funeral that has a very contentious situation going. The dead mother's parents want to have a traditional funeral at a church. She is a anti-religious Buddhist who wants to be cremated and then have her ashes flushed down a toilet. So there's pretty big conflict there, and Viggo Mortensen and his kids decide to road trip down to Arizona to go to the mom's funeral and try to stop it from happening and try to respect her final wishes. I don't want to say too much more about what else happens in the plot, but I loved this film. I saw myself and my kids reflected in the film. Again, we are not nearly so extreme as the family in this movie, but because we unschool, because we have chosen a path that is very different from the traditional just, go to work, go to school, slot into the chute and do your sort of normal American life, I definitely saw us reflected in this family's way of doing things. The kids, the child actors were all incredible. I was talking to my mom on the phone earlier today, and I was like, they might have some weird schooling situations, but I'm pretty sure not all 6 of them were actually unschooled in the woods, but boy, did they sell it to me, and I believed it. They are great actors. The style that they were rocking, or the non-style, was so perfect. There's this eclectic mix when you hang out with homeschoolers, because especially kids that have never been to school, they've never had that peer pressure fashion, oh, you got to look right, like beaten into them, or even not beaten into them, but just, you guys know how it is. So the fashion sense among the homeschoolers is amazingly awful. Hairstyles, outfits, just mixing of different eras. It's completely chaotic, and it's a big miss a lot of the time, but when a kid hits it with their homeschool fashion, it's pretty awesome. And some of the homeschool fashions in this movie were pretty great. The kids themselves are incredibly well read. They're like college level education, even down to like the 8-year-old. But they're totally socially awkward because they've never really hung out with other people that aren't outside their family. And so as they take this road trip across, or I guess down the West Coast, this becomes more and more apparent as they are interacting with, normie people along the way. It's heartwarming, it's sad, it's powerful, it's touching, it's funny, it's amazing. I loved this film, you guys, and not just because I found it fairly relatable as a anarchist-leaning, weirdo, unschooling mom. I think that anyone would appreciate this movie, but especially if you are homeschooling or unschooling, or are tangentially related to a family that is doing that. I think you'll really enjoy this film and the ideas behind it and the stuff that gets brought up in it. It's pretty great. Side note, they instead of having Christmas in this family, they celebrate Noam Chomsky's birthday. So that's where they're at. Captain Fantastic, highly recommended. I recommend it for everyone, really. But again, parents, kids, people that have been intimately in the school situation or not, I think you'll dig it. The next night after that, we watched Dave Made a Maze from 2017, directed by Bill Watterson. Not that Bill Watterson, a different Bill Watterson. This one's been on my list for a while, and then it was recommended by Cinema Club member Nick Caesar. And I was like, we've had that one clanking around for a while, and I really put it on the list for Jimmy because he is my little artist, and he's my little garbage artist and my little cardboard artist. So Dave Made a Maze. It's a fantasy adventure about an artist named Dave who builds a cardboard fort/maze/labyrinth in the living room of his apartment while his girlfriend is away for the weekend. She comes back, she's looking for Dave, she finds the cardboard fort instead. She can hear him talking, but she can't find him in the apartment, and she realizes that he's inside the fort, which is smaller than the size of a compact car in reality, but of course it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. He's built the maze, he's gotten himself trapped in the maze, it's very dangerous in the maze, and he can't find his way out. So she proceeds to invite a bunch of his buddies over to try and figure out how to get him out of the maze. He keeps warning them not to go in the maze, but of course they do. And then we, as viewers, get to go into the maze as well. There's all kinds of weirdness inside of the maze. And again, I don't want to say too much about exactly what happens, but there is some traps and some people die, and it does get gory, but it's pretty awesomely done. The gore in the maze is craft supplies. So at one point, one of the people in the maze gets beheaded by a trap, but instead of blood and guts squirting out of her neck, it's like yarn and confetti and other craft supplies. There's a point later in the movie where they wind up following paint tracks along the floor instead of like bloody footprints. So that particular thing was utterly charming to me as a arts and crafts person. There's also this very dark element of the maze where there's a part of the maze that if you put a part of your body into it, you are replaced by cardboard, like being turned to stone, but you're turned to cardboard instead. And at some point, our heroes figure out that there's also a cardboard minotaur haunting the cardboard labyrinth. So it's really, really well styled and constructed. The entire interior of the maze is amazing. Unfortunately, it fails a little bit on storytelling and writing, but I think the stylishness of the movie and the experience of going into the maze with Dave's friends to find him more than makes up for it. So if you are the type of person who loves visually interesting films, if you're an artist, if you are someone who's ever made a bunch of stuff out of cardboard. If you're someone who likes bigger on the inside, sort of multiverse dimensional stuff, I was going to say I won't use the word TARDIS, but I said it right there. If you like any of those elements, I think you will like Dave Made a Maze. And we wrapped up our week this week with The Grudge from 2004. Yes, I am talking about the American remake of the Japanese movie. I know I normally am a no remakes person, but in this case, I wanted to check it out. The director is Takashi Shimizu, who is the director of the Japanese original of The Grudge, which is called Ju-on The Grudge. I will admit I have not seen the Japanese original, but I was intrigued to see the American remake because what we have here is an American remake coming out 2 years after a Japanese original horror movie. It's the same writer and director as the original. He's been given a chance to remake his own movie for a different audience, a bigger audience in America. And I really like that idea because I think as artists, whenever we work on big projects, and the bigger the project, I think the more this kind of applies, there's little elements that kind of get away from you while you're doing your project, right? It's like you can keep so much under control, but the bigger the project gets, the more things you have to compromise on, or you don't get to do them exactly the way you wanted to. I think as far as art projects go, a movie is pretty much like the most extensive and busiest kind of art project you can do. So I think that directors have to compromise a lot when they're making films and have to just kind of go with, okay, well, that's what worked, even though it's not exactly what I wanted to do. So here you have a situation where the artist is being given a chance to take a second shot at their incredibly expensive and difficult to do project and fix the things that they thought were wrong with the original. And he said that in interviews. So I thought, okay, well, that's cool. So I want to check this out. So we did. I was very scared by this movie, you guys. I watch a lot of horror movies and I don't actually find them that scary usually. I'm more there for the tense atmosphere, for the visuals, for the storytelling. But usually I don't actually find myself getting like scared by a horror movie. You guys, this movie, The Grudge, scared me. There were a couple of different pretty great jump scares, which had me like actually screaming in the living room, and I almost fell sideways out of my chair at one point. And there is another point in the movie that's not like so scary, like viscerally, like a jump scare or something. Well, I guess I should back up. It's a story about a haunted house. And it's told in a non-linear narrative way, which I love. I love any non-linear narrative that I have to figure out the order things go in. Ooh, I love it. That is just such a cool trick. And when it's done well, it makes my day. So haunted house, you've got multiple ghosts haunting the haunted house and multiple people being haunted by the ghosts when they come into the house. Then there's a side character, a sister of the guy who lives in the haunted house. And at one point, she's calling to check in to make sure everything is going okay at the house. She leaves him a message. He calls her back. She's at work. Now, it's not her brother that calls her back. It's actually the ghost at the haunted house that calls her back. And it makes its little ghost noise at her on the phone. At which point, the ghost from the house, which is miles away from her physical location, is suddenly in her office building, terrorizing her and haunting her in the office building. And you guys, this bugged me so much. It freaked me the fuck out. I said to Sean, okay, look, if the movie's about a haunted house, I should have some protection from the haunting if I remove myself physically from the house. I've watched a million haunted house movies. That's how it works. The fucking ghost can call you up from the haunted house and be like, hi, I'm at your office building now. That is scary as shit. It really fucking stuck with me, and I'm still scared of it, you guys. Like, I don't want my phone to ring and get some ghost coming in here right now, okay? That's a level to take it to, okay? So again, I'm not going to say too much more about the plot of this movie. It's a ghost movie. It's a haunted house movie. It takes place in Japan. It's a remake of a Japanese movie made by the same guy who made the original. Sarah Michelle Gellar is the star of the American version. She does a pretty good job. Everybody in it does a pretty good job. There are some places where the narrative does get a little confusing just because it is non-linear, but if you plug your brain in and pay attention to what's going on and like what the decor in the house looks like and who's still alive and who isn't at any given time, you can piece the order of the narrative back together, and you have a little fun kind of solving a mystery at the same time as you're getting the pants scared off of you watching a very scary movie, The Grudge. I think we are going to go back and watch the original so that we can compare the two of them. I'm not sure if we're going to watch the sequel. I'm going to look up and see what other people's reviews are, because horror movie sequels can be very hit or miss. But if it's a hit, I'm willing to check it out. And that's it for us for this week of Cinema Club. I'm not sure what we're watching next week, except I will tell you guys, I just found out about the concept of Easterns or Austerns, which are Soviet and Soviet bloc movies that are Westerns. but that take place in the East instead. And I got a list of those from a couple of cool Reddit threads that I was reading. So I'm really excited about checking out some Austrian movies this week, but I don't know what else we're going to watch. So you'll have to stay tuned till next time to find out what we wind up watching this week. But meanwhile, let me know what you guys have been watching and if you have any recommendations, that's the word, for our Cinema Club chapter over here. All right, clearly I've been talking too long because I'm tripping over my own tongue, so I'm going to leave it here. I hope you guys all take care and stay safe out there, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.